them together to battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. They went up on the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. The devil who deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and false prophet are, and they will be tormented day and night forever and ever.
February 26,
Now,
2023.
the theme of this chapter, the theme of these verses, is the millennial reign of Christ, the 1,000-year reign of Christ. The word or the term, the phrase, 1,000 years, just to show you that it is indeed the theme. That little phrase shows up 6 times in 7 verses.
The time I started, April 2nd, 2017. "42 months from that point was October 2nd, 2020. October 2nd. Yeah, false prophet Harold Camping, he said that was the birth of Christ, which was October 2nd. But he was a false prophet. Nothing ever happened that he said anyway. However, from that point on, just go 999 days into the evening. That'll get you right to June 28th, 2023. I'll be 46 full years old, and then you'll have 1/2 hour, because I was born on June 28th, 1976. So I'll be 46 full years old. As soon as 11:30 hits, 46 years have passed. I am now 47, and I would have been up from YouTube for 42 months to get my feet wet, and then it's like reigning with Christ for 1,000 years. The next 1,000 years is the determining factor, because what you're doing is you're taking the word 1,000, and you're not being ignorant of this one thing, that you'll have a 1/2 hour of silence, and then it'll get you to June 29th the next day. Now 1,000 being repeated 6 times, when you just count the days from June to June 28th. It's 2,278. But right before that, it's 1,278. So 1,278 days, 78, 79, is 42 months. But it's also 6 years, 226, after $6,000 years, because that's what it feels like for me. It feels like it's been 6,000 years ago since I started.
Years, 1,000 years, 1,000 years, 1,000 years. So at the end of it, you'll go, I think I know what the theme is. 1,000 years.
But do not let this one fact escape your notice, beloved, that with the Lord, one day is I mean, it's like 1,000 years. It's like a metaphor. And 1,000 years is as one day. So one single day is as 1,000 years. But at the same time, one day is as a year. And then that 1 year is as 1,000 years with that one day. And each one ties into the other. Because in Bible prophecy, one day is as a year. So if you have 1 year as one day, and then 1,000 years is as one day, well, then you're going to have 6 years. It's going to feel like 6,000 of them.
According to 1260-1290-days-bible-prophecy.org, a day equals a year in the Bible. How a day can equal a year? The fact that a day can signify a year is of crucial importance in the study of the Bible numbers.
Day for a year principle. So if a day equals a year, and don't be ignorant of this one thing, that 1,000 years is as one day. And one day is as a year, so 1,000 years, but it's really as one day. So 1,000 days is just a little over 3 years. This thousands of thing, this thousand thing, reigning with Christ for 1,000 years. Well, it's 1,000 days, or it's 1,000 years, or it's one day, because one day is as 1,000 years, but at the same time, 1,000 days from that point on. From the point of the crowning behind the scenes, and then the next reigning with Christ for 1,000-year millennium.
That is the theme of this chapter. It is very, very precise. We call this the millennium. The millennium comes from two Latin words, mille and annum, which means 1,000 years. There was a young theology student who was taking a test. The first question on the test is, what is the millennium? And he wrote on his test, the millennium is the same as a centennial, only it has a lot more legs. Well, I think he got a centipede mixed up with a centennial and a millipede with a millennium. But same idea. The millennium simply means a whole lot more than 100 years. It's 1,000 years to be exact. Now, whatever you're going to do with this kingdom, however you're going to interpret it, you're going to have to deal with the chronology of the book of Revelation. So behind me, we're going to put up a chart. I seldom have charts to look at, but we're going to do this for this first section so you can have this as your reference as we go along. Those of us who interpret the Bible straightforward, literally, have no problem doing this, looking at it like this. Those who spiritualize the text, making it mean something other than what it actually says, have a problem doing this. But then again, they have a problem with prophecy in general. For instance, the Reformed view of eschatology sees
Word study. The government will be upon his shoulders. Isaiah 9 verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders. With the advent of worship teams, church choirs are starting to become an endangered species, if they are not already extinct.
These are just fun facts. After Jesus comes back to the earth, that takes us to Revelation chapter.
So this would be the beginning of sorrows. It's a 3.5 year period. And then there would be a crowning. And then there's a millennial reign. So first, 3.5 years of like setting things up. Then you got your 1,000-year period right here. And then from that point on, once that thousands of years up, then it becomes the final judgment. So there's a first woe. Once the second woe happens, the third woe happens really quickly. And so this is the new heavens and the new earth. After the 1,000-year period is up, after 42-month period is up, it's after that. So if you're interpreting this as 1,000 years or 1,000 days, or maybe it's 2,000 days, maybe it's 3,000 days all together, or it's 42 months and 1,000 days.
Chapter 20, because we're following the chronology, straightforward reading. It's a 1,000-year reign of Christ on the earth. When that is done, when the 1,000 years is...
And the ironic thing about that is, it's more like reigning on earth for 1,000 years. Nothing's actually changed in your life. It's just that they are reigning with Christ for 1,000 years. And then once that's finished, then it's the prayer. As it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth.
Is done, that ends the present universe as we know it. The millennium will essentially be a restored earth, renovated earth, rejuvenated earth, rebuilt earth.
That's exactly what's going on right at this moment.
Reconditioned earth, whatever word you want to use.
Because before anything actually physically changes on planet Earth, there has to be a 1,000-year millennium in order to get things in order so it can change at the very end of when the judgment comes.
It'll be redone. It'll be paradise regained. That will be the millennium. Regained. That will be the millennium. After the 1,000-year reign of Christ on the earth, following the chart, following the chronology, following the book of Revelation, after that is the final judgment of unbelievers, also found in Revelation chapter 20, also known as the Great White Throne Judgment. After that will come the destruction of the earth and the heavens, and God.
Let's say we're not right here, but we're right about here. Let's say we're closer to here. Because the final judgment obviously hasn't happened yet. Eternal state hasn't happened yet. Where's Christ? Well, he comes as a thief in the night. To some and others, he doesn't come as a thief in the night. When did the 42-month period start? What about the 70 weeks of Daniel, the tribulation period that he has to go through before the final crowning, and then transitioning from Old Testament to New Testament? Somewhere along the lines, maybe that 70 weeks is right at the very end of the 42-month period, and then it goes from Old Testament to New Testament, which is a 7-year period. 7-year period-ish, all the way up until the eternal state. I heard there's a party happening in October, but Kleck's not going to announce it right at this moment. Not at the exact moment, but Harold Camping's World, millennial reign, 1,000 days, because it's really a 42-month period and then 1,000 days, and then they're going to get the final judgment. And then heaven comes down to earth finally in the next couple of years.
God will create a new heaven and a new earth. That is called the eternal state. We're just following the chronology of the book of Revelation. That's chapter 21 and 22.
When I look at my life, because that's what I'm doing, I'm taking my life and I say, this is what it reminds me of. Since I started 36 months, 42 months, October 2nd, 2020, by this time, even at the beginning of the year, March 16, 2020, click rang the bell, the stock market bell rang. 4 minutes beforehand, I predicted its fall for that day, and then 2,977 points later, when it's stopped at, but before that went down 3,000, and it tumbled. I was already in the middle of basically this month. I was
in your teaser right now.
Who?
Genesis. I'm just getting started.